Believe me, if I started murdering people, there'd be none of you left.
Some may think serial killers are a thing of the past. With the advance of technology and law enforcement, it is rare for a killer to have victims across multiple years before they are caught. But today's case will chill even the most skeptical of viewers to the bone.
Rex, did you do it? Rex Sherman is a demon that walks among us. A predator that ruined families. If not for the members of this task force, he would still be out in the streets today.
He asked me if I liked true crime, asked if I knew about the Gilgo Beach murders.
A 21st century serial killer whose murders span over 2 decades. Innocent women whose fates remained unknown. That is, until now. This is the case of the demon of Gilgo Beach. On May 1st, 2010, sex worker Shannon Gilbert, who worked as an escort, was on her way to a job in the Long Island South Shore area. It seemed a night like any other, but unbeknownst to Gilbert, in a few hours, her remains would join those of 4 other victims, somewhere in the bushes along the beach she was driving by. She had met her client through the Craigslist website and was on her way to his house in a gated community near Oak Beach around 2 a.m. that night. At 4:51 a.m., Gilbert placed a phone call to emergency services. A terrified Gilbert can be heard stating that there was someone after her. She pleads with a 911 dispatcher, "Can you please get me out of here?" But the police did not respond to Gilbert's call. She did not know where she was and could not give an exact location. The following is the 911 call Shannon Gilbert made, in which police say Shannon can be heard speaking with her driver, Michael Pack, and her client, Joseph Brewer.
State police.
Yeah, there's somebody after me.
I'm sorry?
There's somebody after me.
Where are you, ma'am?
I don't know.
You're driving right now?
No, I'm inside the house.
What house?
I don't know. Can you trace where I am?
I'm sorry?
Can you trace where I am?
No, I can't. What's your callback number you're calling from?
Somebody's after me. Please.
Are you in Suffolk County or Nassau County?
I'm in Long Island.
Where on Long Island are you?
No. 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 No, stop, no. Why are you calling me by my name?
What's the matter? Are you okay?
What are you going to do? What are you going to do to me?
Let's go back to Manhattan. Are you what's the matter?
Why? What are you going to kill me?
It's running through, I think it's Suffolk County on the north side. It's County Manhattan.
Why are you going to
Call Suffolk County.
You freaking mad? Come on.
I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Let's go back to Manhattan. All right? We're in Long Island. We're out near the water.
Please, stop.
Please, Mike. Brother, come on.
No, stop it, please.
Shannon then ran from Brewer's house at 8 The Fairway to neighbor Gus Coletti's house at 17 The Fairway.
Shannon.
What's the matter? Somebody at you?
She then ran from Coletti's home, prompting him to call 911.
Suffolk Police 873 was the location of your emergency.
Yes, I live at Oak Beach in the association. There's a young girl about 14 years old running around here screaming, and there's some guy trying to follow her.
All right, you have a description of the girl or the boy?
The girl is about 14 years old, got blonde hair, very small. The boy, I can't tell, he was into like a Suburban.
What color?
Black.
Shannon then ran to another neighbor's home, prompting a third 911 call made at 5:30 a.m. by Barbara Brennan.
43 the Bayou. Some woman is knocking at my door. She says she's in danger.
Police say they believe Gilbert ran into this marsh in Gilgo, which would have looked like this at the time that night. They believe that's where Gilbert died.
Right now, we believe it's a tragic accident.
Shannon Gilbert's driver, Michael Pack, and her client, Joseph Brewer, were both investigated and cleared of any wrongdoing. As soon as Gilbert was reported missing by her boyfriend, both police and her family launched a search for the woman. It would take another 1.5 years for the police to finally find her.
If it wasn't for Shannon Gilbert's disappearance, we may never have found the remains of the other victims.
On the 11th of December 2010, a police officer was performing a practice exercise with one of the department's police dogs. But what started out as a regular training day would soon turn into something totally unforgettable. The dog appeared particularly attracted to the marshes on Long Island's South Shore beach. And even when the officer would try to redirect him, the dog went straight back into the bushes. It was for good reason. Somewhere in the vegetation, hidden only shallowly, were the remains of 24-year-old Melissa Barthelemy. And she wasn't alone. 3 more victims would soon be found near Barthelemy, all wrapped in burlap. Melissa Barthelemy was last seen at her Bronx apartment on the 12th of July, 2009. Also an escort, Barthelemy found some of her clients through websites such as Adult Friend Finder. On that fateful night, Barthelemy was working. She told a friend she would return shortly. Barthelemy's mother reported her as missing 6 days later after not hearing from her. Barthelemy's younger sister, Amanda, reported some strange calls to the police. She had been receiving some strange calls never longer than 3 minutes on the phone. A male voice would taunt her about her sister's murder, and even confessing to it. 2 days after the discovery of Barthelemy's body, Amberlyn Costello's remains also surfaced. Costello was 27, lived in West Babylon, Long Island, and had last been seen alive on September 2, 2010. A heroin addict, Costello and her roommate worked as escorts in order to fund their habit. And just like Barthelemy and Gilbert, Costello advertised her services on Craigslist and another website called Backpage. Costello did not bring her cell phone with her on the night of September 2nd. She left on foot and did not tell anyone where she was going. Sadly, she was never even reported missing. Megan Waterman was also among the 3 bodies discovered on December 13th. Waterman, a 22-year-old escort, was last seen on June 6, 2010. Originally from Scarborough, Maine, she was last seen boarding a New York-bound Concord Trailways bus. In concordance with the other victims, Waterman was also a regular user of Craigslist and Backpage. She left the Holiday Inn Express, where she had been staying, at 1:30 a.m. June 6th, supposedly to meet a client. But Waterman never returned. Her family reported her missing 2 days later after she did not call them to check on her 3-year-old daughter. Maureen Brainerd Barnes is believed to have been the first victim of the 4 women who would become known as the Gilgo Four. On July 6, 2007, Barnes took a train from her home in Norwich, Connecticut to Grand Central Station in New York City. Barnes was aware of the dangers in her line of work. Usually, she would travel with a friend in order to ensure her safety. Only that on that particular day, her friend returned home early, leaving Barnes unguarded. And there was something else. Although Barnes normally worked in motel rooms, That night, she told her friend that she would be meeting a client elsewhere on what she called an out call. Barnes was reported missing by a friend a week later. She was found dead along with the bodies of Shannon Gilbert, Melissa Barthelemy, and Amber Lynn Costello. The women had all been victims of what experts called homicidal violence. Tragically, the search for Gilbert would reveal more than just the remains of 3 other victims. In 2003, Jessica Taylor's remains were found in a wooded area in Manorville, Long Island. But soon, her case went cold. However, on March 29, 2011, as the NYPD kept investigating the Gilgo Four, they stumbled upon yet another victim's partial skeletal remains along Ocean Parkway's Long Island, Jessica Taylor's. At this moment in time, a terrifying pattern began to emerge. Police started to suspect the work of a serial killer, one who had managed to slip through the cracks for almost a decade. As the bodies of the suspected serial killer's victims kept piling up, pressure kept mounting on law enforcement. But for years to come, they would only be met with more questions. The 4th of April 2011 marked yet another disturbing discovery. Just like in the case of Jessica Taylor's remains, Valerie Max had been spread out, with her head, hands, and right foot turning up on Gilgo Beach, 11 years after her torso was initially found in Manorville, New York, in September 2000. Originally from Philadelphia, Valerie was 24 years old and had been working as an escort at the time of her disappearance. She was last seen in Port Republic, New Jersey, and was only identified through forensic genealogy in May 2020.
Today, we are announcing that Jane Doe number 6 has been positively identified as Valerie Mack.
On the day Mack's remains were found, police were met with 2 more shocking discoveries. The first was the lifeless body of a 2-year-old toddler. The child did not match the victim profile for their suspected serial killer, and yet he was found on the same remote stretch of highway as the women. To this day, the boy remains unidentified. The second was the body of an Asian male, once again an unusual victim if murdered by the same individual. The man has also remained unidentified. These discoveries marked another obstacle for investigators. Were these 2 poor souls random victims of homicide? And had they even been killed by the same individual? Only a week would pass until 2 more bodies were found 7 miles from Gilgo Beach. They were the remains of 2 more women. One of them has also remained unidentified and has thus been classified as Jane Doe 7. The other woman is believed to have been the toddler's mother.
They discovered extremities tied to Peaches in the Nassau County section of Ocean Parkway. It turned out her gold jewelry matched jewelry on a female toddler. DNA confirmed this victim was the daughter of Peaches.
Gilgo Beach, it turned out, was a mass grave. But in spite of the bodies of the victims retrieved by police, their efforts were largely unrewarded. For the next decade, the case of the Gilgo Beach killer went cold. In the midst of the pandemic, police released more information about the murders in hopes of generating new leads. A website, Gilgo News, was launched in order to help advance the case. Among the evidence released was a belt believed to have been worn and used by the killer. The belt, which bore the initials WH or HM, was found during the initial stages of the Gilgo Beach investigation in 2011. Law enforcement was hopeful that someone would recognize the belt, with an investigator on the case stating, "We're hopeful that this photograph will bring somebody forward with information about the origin of that article." 2 years later, no one had.
These crimes may have happened years ago, but that pain continues.
On February 15, 2022, police created a task force dedicated to the Gilgo Beach murders. The Gilgo Homicide Investigation Task Force was supported by both state and federal agencies in the hopes that the elusive killer would be found once and for all. But with no recent clues as to who might have been responsible for the deaths, the task force had to go back into what evidence had already been gathered. Among this evidence was a suspicious vehicle. A witness in the disappearance of Amber Costello, one of the Gilgo 4 victims, recalled seeing a first-generation Chevy Avalanche being driven by the woman's client on the night she went missing. The owner was a man whose name will go down in history for the worst reasons. The vehicle was registered to 58-year-old Rex Hewerman.
Rex Hewerman, I'm an architect, I'm an architectural consultant, I'm a troubleshooter, born and raised on Long Island.
Okay.
Been working in Manhattan since 1987.
What has this job taught you about yourself?
I think it's taught me more about how to understand people.
He was very quiet, dark, kept to himself, and extremely intelligent.
The lead led to a comprehensive investigation into Hewerman. Among the first pieces of evidence found against him were the multiple locations he was identified as having used burner phones.
For each of the murders, he got an individual burner phone, and he used that to communicate with the victims.
Allegedly, Hewerman would have used the burners to arrange his meetings with escorts.
I told people for years, I said, I swear to you, I had dinner with the Gilgo Beach killer. He was an architect. I knew he worked in Manhattan. And then he got to where he asked me if I liked true crime, asked if I knew about the Gilgo Beach murders. He said, how do you think he gets rid of the bodies without being seen? And I said, I don't know. I've never been to Gilgo Beach. I don't know the area. And he was like, well, it's really dark and desolate.
Brass claims that Hewerman also spoke about Shannon Gilbert.
About that Shannon Gilbert girl, the one from Jersey, you think that's connected? And I was like, I do. And he was like, yeah, me too.
The 26th of January 2023 would mark a highly important discovery in Hewerman's investigation. A surveillance team observed and recovered a pizza box thrown by Hewerman into a garbage bin located in the front of 385 Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. A DNA swab taken from the pizza crust was a 99.96% match to hair found near the bottom of the burlap used to wrap one of the bodies. After a detective took 11 bottles for forensic testing from Hewerman's trash, it was determined that a strand of hair found on Waterman's remains matched the DNA on one of the bottles. The hair belonged to Hewerman's wife, Asa Ellerup. Another hair found on Costello's remains was also a match. On the 13th of July 2023, New York-based architect Rex Hewerman was arrested in connection to the Gilgo Beach murders.
Rex, did you do it?
Since the initial discovery of Shannon Gilbert's body, the remains of 11 total victims were found at the site. Hewerman, turns out, was a bit of a criminal mastermind. A lot of the investigation into the killer was performed in secret. As the district attorney on the case stated, law enforcement knew that the person responsible for these murders would be looking back at us. This statement would turn out to be scarily accurate.
He tape recorded a reporter from 2012 reporting on the Gilgo Beach case. He made eerie sounds, eerie noises, and then he spoke. I hope you're enjoying your pizza. We had not ordered pizza. At the door was a Domino's pizza man with 3 boxes of pizza.
Whilst investigating Hewerman's internet activity, police discovered the killer had been searching the internet for information on serial killers and how police investigate them. Moreover, Hewerman had been consistently searching for information on the task force between March 22 and June 2023. On July 14, 2023, a grand jury indicted Hewerman in connection with the deaths of Barthélemy, Waterman, and Costello 3 out of the Gilgo 4. With regards to Brainerd Barnes, the 4th victim found in 2010, police have said that the investigation is still ongoing, but that there is substantial evidence connecting Huerman to her murder. Shortly after hearing the accusations against him, Rex Huerman broke down in tears. The suspect pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of second-degree murder. He is currently being held without bail. But regardless of the evidence against Huerman, some found Huerman's reaction to the accusations entirely surprising. His defense lawyer, Michael Brown, was quoted saying, "I will say to you folks that it's extremely circumstantial in nature. In terms of speaking to my client, the only thing I can tell you that he did say, as he was in tears, was I didn't do this."
He said from the moment I met him that I did not do this.
But could Huerman actually be innocent? Authorities believe that the possibility is extremely unlikely, and those close to him seem to be coming to their own revelations, with Huerman's wife recently filing for divorce. Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison, who has been seriously involved in the investigation, spoke on Huerman's not guilty plea. Rex Huerman is a demon that walks amongst us, a predator that ruined families. The families of the victims seem equally convinced of the man's involvement. Sherry Gilbert, Shannon Gilbert's sister, said in an email to NBC News, "I'm just happy it happened sooner rather than later. The suspect, Rex, deserves to rot in prison for the rest of his life. He destroyed many lives, so while it won't bring our loved ones back, it does help that one less monster is off the streets, and he can't ever hurt anyone else." Although some may not appear entirely convinced of Huerman's involvement, the most important aspect of the investigation is that it is moving forward. Regardless of whether Huerman is proved to have murdered all 11 of the Gilgo Beach victims or not, they all deserve justice. In a recent interview, Suffolk County's district attorney was quoted saying, "This case is not over. This is only the beginning." Do you believe Rex Huerman is guilty? If so, do you think he is the author of all 11 murders? Let us know your opinion in the comments below. At The Decoder, we compile reliable sources in order to bring you the truth about true crime. Your support is what keeps us going, so don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons on your way out. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you soon on The Decoder.